Well, kids, we're back. It's been a bit, and I'm glad I get to pull an old buddy of mine on here, the Shama, John Sh-
What's up?
Johnny Shumski from Boston, and I met him out in L.A. So small world. We just kind of had a little bit of fun together, and then we're two guys sitting out in L.A. and he was out there for more of an acting gig than I was, but ex Blues draft pick. Shama, why don't you say hi to the peeps?
Hello there, Christopher and friends.
You want to? So you were what? RPI Lowell, and then what?
Yeah, I went to RPI after high school. That was my choice. And then after a couple of years, you know, didn't kind of see eye to eye with the coach, so I decided to change over and um, transfer to Lowell, who originally recruited me. So it was an easy move for me. And then, then I finished up at Lowell and I got my degree, and then
Right.
went to camp with the Blues, similar to yourself.
When did you get drafted? What year?
1981.
So, well, you were freshman or last year in high
Yeah,
school or what?
it was just yeah, it was just after my freshman year.
So same as me. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was that summer. I was doing my summer job and I got a call, and
So I,
your coach is on the phone. I'm looking at him. I forgot it was draft day. He's like, "What's Mike Odessa on the phone for?" So
right,
I mean, I knew it was. You know what I'm saying? I knew it was that day. I just didn't
right.
he'd be calling me. I figured he'd call me the next day if I got picked. But yeah.
Yeah, we were both late round picks. I was at the cottage, and I've shared this before. It was pretty proud. Like, we've talked about our old man a bit. My old man's my best friend. He may not have pushed me as hard as you got pushed, and I was sort of a tweener on that. Last thing I want to do is push my kid real hard. It's got to come from them type thing. But
Mhm.
my old man was golfing and came around, and I was out with some friends at the cottage having a late one, and he had the newspaper in his hand. He just had a, Shanny had a big smile on his face. So that I still remember that to this day.
Wow, that's a good feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, make your dad
You
proud
know,
always.
absolutely. And Chris, the one thing when you get drafted in any sport, whether it's hockey or baseball, football, no matter how far you go in that sport, if you get drafted, it kind of legitimizes all the hard work and effort that you put in. Whether you go in the first round, 10th round, you
Well,
know what I mean?
oh,
It,
for
it kind
sure.
of it you can always look back at it and say, I was a good enough player to be drafted in National Hockey League. Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, it just as when talking to parents and whatnot, you always say the 2%, right? The 2% of minor league kids are going to play junior. The 2% of juniors are going to get a scholarship. The 2% of the scholarship guys are going to get drafted. 2% of those guys are going to play. There's a lot of. It's not an easy road by no means. And as I've shared with others, it's a great game. I love it. Um, I had an opportunity to play football, and you almost did the same.
Hmm.
Um, it's gotten better, but as a parent, you always want to say do well and you'll get rewarded. And with hockey, it's been a bit of an old boys club. It's tough not to crack for sure. And back in the day when we were playing, it's gotten better now. There was probably 80% guys that are making one-way tickets versus,
Hmm.
in the NFL where there's 10. So
Right.
you just get cut in the NFL and the other guy comes in. Well, that year that I went, they signed three Russians to one-way deals. Not one guy out of St. Louis camp from St. Louis or Peoria got signed. Like there was not one, surprise training camp, which I surprised a few people by doing okay, I guess. And
Hmm. Hmm.
but it's hard. It's fun. It's great. I like the way the game's going in some spots. I don't know what your opinion is with that. If we're sticking with hockey here,
Well, like when you got started playing hockey, like I did, you I had the thoughts of maybe playing professional hockey at someday. It's out there, but I never. It was never one of those things where I'm playing hockey to be a pro. Like my whole thing was, now I'll tell you a funny story about my dad, how he told me how I'm going to go to college and how this is all going to be paid for. But it was hockey was a means to an end for me. I wanted to be the first kid in my first boy, first girl in my family to graduate college.
Right.
And I was really proud of that. I really was. And it was the struggle that the generation my dad had. They weren't so fortunate. A lot of those grandfather and dad, they came back from the war. You know what I mean? So we were that. I was that. You know what I mean? It was that first real. All right. So what are we going to do here? So I looked at it as I'm going to be. My goal is to go to college for free.
Right.
So um, and I'll tell you a funny story how it all happened. I have twin boys. They're 15 right now. It's the greatest thing ever. You could say that about kids, but
Right.
um, when I was about their age, I was real like you, really good hockey player. My dad, we were going to a hockey game, and he said we were driving. That's usually the time they had the time with you. So he said, you can. Um, there's three things you can do in life. You can go to college, you can go on the service, or you can, that's a good career in the military, or you can go to work at a regular blue collar job. All three of those are great careers. If there's good policemen, firemen, plumbers, electricians, postal workers like me. You know, there's the military is another way to go to life, or you can go to college, and then with college, you don't have to grind it out for 8 hours a day. You can wear a tie
Right.
and spend a day without breaking your back. So when he said think about it for a few days, and we got in the rink and I did my thing, and then probably a week later he asked me what my decision was, and I'm like, I want to go to college. Heck, Dad, yeah, that's my deal. So he looked at me and he said to me, all right, now that you've figured out how you want to go to college, now there's two ways to go to college. Either they pay or you pay, because I can't pay and I don't want to pay. It's up to you to earn it.
Right.
So he says there's a lot of hockey players out there, and that, growing up in Boston, a lot of kids ahead of you and going to play at Boston College and playing at BU and playing at Harvard, the schools that are local in Northeastern. And then, you're good enough, and you might get a crack at it. So that was my way to hockey. You know,
Right.
I'm interested in, how you
I, well,
came to.
well, I was the same, but it was not the same as in, what do you want to do, and this is how you're going to get there. It was just like, when it started from, I didn't get drafted major junior. Then it might have been the year after that I was like, I was kind of a little beat up from it, and never really had the opportunity to play football. And so started playing football in high school and got pretty good at it and
Mhm.
really enjoyed it because I'd never played it before and it was a new sport and blah, blah, blah. But after I kind of took that sabbatical of a year, came back and had whether it was had a good midget year and then a good junior year, and then ended up getting a scholarship in hockey.
Mhm.
And being Canadian, I thought, well, let's give this thing a go. And, didn't think, because, you think about when guys are getting drafted to the NHL and all that, it didn't think, and I didn't really have that. I had a great opening freshman weekend. We go to BU and Northeastern, and BU's ranked number one, and we go 2-0, and I've got 4 points after the first weekend, thinking
Right.
I'm going to
Right.
break every fucking record there is. And
Excuse me. Yep.
got another
Yep.
4 points the rest of the year. So,
Right. 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 Yeah, there you go. Right. But it was good enough.
right.
You were the right scout was in the game the
Yeah.
day.
No, right.
You
Exactly.
know what I'm saying. So, um, so you mentioned something, and what about remember when you'd be recruited, and versus today? So when you went to Colgate,
Yeah.
when you were playing, who else? What other colleges sent you letters, and how did they get in touch with you? Because in America, I was in high school, so the letters go right to the athletic director, Chris,
They were
and then
all
the
to our
athletic,
house.
they were all to your house.
Yeah. So there was Jeff Jackson, who is at Notre Dame right now, and still I'd say a friend, an acquaintance of, he's a resource, definitely. A guy was one of my first offers, not when he was an assistant coach at Lake State.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a couple others, but not that much interest. And then I had and just after meeting Terry Slater, who was the head coach of Colgate,
Right.
ended up passing away. Same thing as Bob Johnson, that he came up and saw me. So I wasn't even an assistant coach pick. I was his kind of pick.
Yeah.
And felt a close bond there. And that's, nothing against Brian DeRocher, who took over or anything, but that second year when Coach Slats passed at Christmas, I had a pretty good sophomore year and not much special teams. So it wasn't, I was kind of like, well, maybe I'm not part of that picture kind of thing. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
their guy. So I just thought, let's go give this a swing. And that's what I did. And I started in the minors and moved on for 13 years kind of thing. But there was life lessons all the way that you think that, maybe I should have stayed in school because, one, they weren't expecting me, yada, yada, yada. And Bruce Gardner, who got drafted with me a little earlier than I did to St. Louis, he ended up getting rights traded to Ottawa, ended up having a full pension, blah, 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 doing the thing. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
where you at, what you're doing, and how you get there is all different for everybody. So,
Well, also when I remember RPI would play. So freshman, sophomore year, you mostly played I was at Rensselaer. It was ECAC, and then Hockey East
same.
was Lowell.
Right.
So I played Colgate 4 times at RPI,
Right.
and you go through all the teams, and every team has a certain style, and every one of them. You played Boston College, you played BU, then you played Colgate, Clarkson. Colgate was a very always. Dan Fridgen played there,
Yeah.
and Dan Fridgen was a defenseman when I was a freshman, and he was probably a junior, and he was one of the best defensemen I ever played against. But the point is that Colgate hit, they finished their checks, and when you played Colgate, you knew you played a hockey game, just like Clarkson. You
Right.
knew you were in a hockey game, okay? Whereas I don't want to name any schools, but they played a softer
Right.
game. So translate that to I play hockey with you out in Los Angeles, mid '90s, and
Let's say, how did that start, Shummer? Do you remember better than I did? Because I know we had, and you can just correct me if I'm wrong. So, well, Shummer's out there, as you can tell, and it's not just his orange light, even though he doesn't look orange right now. You should have seen us in our audio tech meeting.
Oh, Jesus.
He even
Production meeting.
He even had his eyebrows checked. So he had Shummer was out in LA, serious acting, trying to do it.
Yep.
I went out there, have a little fun. My boys were playing roller hockey, and then dabbled in the entertainment industry, yada yada yada. Ended up hurting my back. So I don't know if I met you that first summer, but then ended up hurting my back, and my back surgeon, Dr. Bray, had was it a men's league team, or was it just was that what it was?
Yeah, it was a senior. It was the senior.
Whatever. There was
senior
league out there.
Talk league out there.
Right.
Definitely.
And then
he had a team in it. Yep.
And then so did I. I don't know whether I got you on board or because did I already meet you then before? How did we meet? I don't even know.
But I don't know. You just appeared. You playing, you're playing in the regular season, and you're like a kid that they get this ringer here from Canada. Excuse me, 1 second.
Yeah, so we used to play out in the beach. I know you didn't do much of that, but there's a bunch of guys that did that. But so Shummer and I meet, and we're playing in this fairly decent league.
Hmm.
We ended up winning the damn thing. Why not?
Yep.
Everybody out there who were the locals were a little sour, but whatever. And then when so I stayed for another that season. So I missed that season playing pro, and then um, that following summer started getting training back into shape because I did McGuire from like January to April. Didn't was going to stay for another film, but wanted to go make no money and play hockey, and kind of moved on.
Right.
And you were there for how long before that, and then how long after?
Well, I got there in '91, so if you were there in '95, so
Yeah, 4 years
I
ish.
rolled in there at '91,
Okay.
and then I stayed all the way till 2019.
Yeah, you
So
just came back, right? Recent.
that was 27 years for me. So
It's a hell of a shift. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Like I've
absolutely.
touched based on, and it's a tough road,
Oh
the
yeah.
entertainment industry. And as I've
Yep.
shared with you, I'm not a big fan of whether it's kissing ass or doing whatever. I was,
Brown nose and
well, yeah, that the brown nose.
right.
If you keep coming up with your mic, I'm not going to be able to.
Well,
You're
that's why I
perfect.
did it.
Yeah.
I said brown nosing.
Right.
Right.
So,
That
but
was the thing we did in school, brown nosers, right?
so we had a little bit of fun. But yeah, no, it's a tough gig, and we were fortunate to have a sport and knew some people and whatever. But I remember back then your biggest commercials were what? The Snickers was because I saw that when I got back to Canada, didn't I?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was
Snickers
that
was a
was a big one.
national.
The Reese's peanut butter cup. That was a
Another
big
one.
one. So, man, my first real biggie. There was a few I got when I first started out, and then I started studying acting.
Right.
So my first real big commercial was a Diet Dr. Pepper commercial during the college football season. I think it was probably '93, and that was shot by Michael Bay,
Oh,
the
nice.
director. So yeah, so you could probably still find it, but that was my first real big. That was the big one that started it all right there. And then I had the national commercial I did was the Snickers ad, Reese's peanut butter cups, Doritos. I did a Nike, a Bud Light.
So you got
Uh,
around.
yeah, that was the national commercials,
Right.
and then there were the regional commercials.
Of course.
That you shot for, the
The Bay
Chicago
Area. Right. Yeah.
marker
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. You know what I mean? So that was what paid the help pay the bills right there.
You the biggest thing, so for me anyway, and you stayed longer and your kids are older, but I told you this, I was, as a dad, I'm open, honest, the whole bit, and my kids are going to grow up fast enough as it is. And I
Hmm.
said, even when I was living back there, I was like, I don't know if this is where I want them growing up. And
Hmm.
it's fast times 10. And your kids did. So how'd you handle that?
Well, they're the reason why I moved back here.
100%. But you said they're now 15,
100%.
right?
No, they're 15 now. They were
Right. So
10.
10 back. Well, you said 19, mother. Am I doing the math?
2000, no, 2019. No, that was 2019. They're 15 now. They were about 10 when I moved back here.
Shummer, I know you're a good mathematician, but 2019 is 4 years ago. So, okay, good math on me. They're
All right,
15,
so
11.
they're
11.
15,
Got it.
11,
All right. We
11.
both did the
Okay,
math.
good.
Okay. So you get out, but so from 0 to 10, you just young enough that it wasn't, get out before the teenage years kind of thing. Was that?
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, no, it was more. I wouldn't. I didn't even. I was. I loved living there. I loved it.
Right.
I lived a
Me too.
block from the beach in Redondo. I loved it, and I the gym was right there, so everything was there that I wanted. But what the issue was is as my kids got to 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 years old,
Right.
and they're in a school. Now the school has, you know, prison bars around it, so people can't get in.
Right.
Bad guys, and the society is just so much different. You know what I mean? So
Well, it's
it's so
completely
it's too
changed now.
well, it was too advanced. So then I started putting it in. This perspective started coming into play. 7, 8 years old. So now is this because you just don't move? It has to plan a year or two in advance.
Right.
So then I started. My wife and I, we really started contemplating it. Like, is this where we want to be? And then
Right.
the economy in California isn't the greatest. It's still taking a dive from the time we were there. So we got out just before COVID because after we got out, you couldn't sell your house because the real estate market crashed. So we got
Right.
out just in time.
Nice.
And it was more that when I wouldn't have, when I saw the progression of what was happening and the kids in Redondo in the night school, I said this might not be. We got to get the kids back to Boston.
Right.
You know?
We had a few benders out there. We had some fun. We were young, and
Oh yeah.
it's my roller hockey career ended early because of my buddy. That was nice of him.
Yeah.
Thanks. The Shama. We had a good
I
time.
could see it, and he didn't want it anyway. And this was an easy way.
I'll have to call Jeannie and say I apologize. And yeah, that 3 day old roller hockey gig was ended quick. But our mutual friend, and that's maybe how we got tied in, because you said you knew Charlie from then, and so I
Yeah.
touched base a little bit on Chuck on my last podcast, and it was, who knows what the hell happened there. I have no idea. You sent me some stuff, but we don't know, right? Because it's still, is it being investigated, or who knows? Don't know.
I don't know. I didn't find out until Griff, my buddy, called me um, from Utah. Where is he? In Idaho. And
And
you hear
said that.
anything about Charlie Scimone? I didn't even know he passed away.
Right.
And then, you know, then I saw him. You got to remember, I saw him like a week and a half, 2 weeks, I think.
Right before you told him
We went out for lunch.
the apnea machine, and
You know, yeah.
take that apnea machine off.
I
Oh,
says,
okay. You need it.
yeah. Well, he showed me his house, and he showed me his bedroom, and his bed was perfectly made, like in the military. And I look in his room,
Darth Vader
and
was
then
in the corner.
he just says, "This is why you have to sleep in here. I have to sleep on the couch, Sean, because I have sleep apnea." And he had the machine right there, and I said to him at the time, "Man, you got to sleep sitting up every night because that's not I do it. I fall asleep on the couch at night, and I'm like, you got to get in your bed. I don't know how he did it every night.
Right.
I was,
Did
but
you
but I
did you because you didn't come down with it. I lived with Chuck, so you were kind of doing your own workout thing, and then when I was working, I was training Cuba out. That was separate. But when I'd go to the gym with Chuck, and we're in Hermosa, and if we'd take, so he's from Boston, not much of a hockey player, but of course he can somewhat skate.
right.
And the hills of Hermosa.
Oh yeah, yep.
But he had road rash from uh like
He had it
for
on his calf,
oh, it was this,
on his calf,
it
on
was
his
for a whole
elbow.
summer all
It
over
was
his body.
his shorts were sticking to his leg.
You saw him. I
The
think
heel.
I
He's
try to
gonna
tell
that
you.
shit's gonna heal. I'm like, you can't be putting anything on that. Don't be rolling around the sand, man. Simone.
Oh, Chaz. So we would end up going to the gym and then have, sweat come down the boardwalk on the way back. And then, as you know, we knew a bunch of people that lived down there and ended up not getting home like till to the next day because we went to a damn workout and then found a party after and had no
And
shoes
then
because
you
I just had
realize that
rollerblades.
I was just gonna say that you realize you have no shoes. You you came in on your rollers, right? And you stand there going, "Oh shit! Now what? Now you're half in the bag, and you got to make it up that hill.
Right.
That's not happening. You got to go down, and you got to swiggle across the streets to make it up." Because Charlie lived on that little hill in that condo complex. Remember?
Yeah. So, because I've touched base on it before, but I'd like to hear it from your perspective. And I don't know that, was there anything else, another one that we had that, I know the big one or the one you thought you were in a video was us and the vet with that Miss Hawaii or whatever.
Oh yeah, that was classic.
But I don't know how many times that happened with us, but I'm sure there might have been a few. But that, do you remember that? Because I couldn't the front when the vet hit the wall. All
I
it was
remember.
we weren't doing anything stupid. We were at a light because in LA there's those lights before you get on the on ramp. Waiting for
Yep.
that, listening to Pearl Jam Alive came on. I remember the song; it's
Yep.
one of
I
my
remember it.
favorites.
I exactly remember it. Yep.
Shummer's in the passenger seat. I'm in the driver's
Hit the
seat. Miss
gas.
Hawaii's in the middle there. No roof.
You hit the gas a little hard on that
A
one.
little,
Go ahead.
a little
A
hard, but
little hard.
drive pavement
Yep.
would have been a problem. But we had there was a
That's right.
who puts a sprinkler on for who needs to grow grass in the middle of a fucking on ramp, and
Caltrans.
that was what they
Caltrans.
wanted. That was my punishment. They wanted me to do. I represented myself with my St. Louis
That's right.
Blues jersey. The
Oh,
little
that's great. It's
prosecutor
the way
tried
to
to say,
win.
"You want 40 hours in Caltrans?" I'm like, "What?"
40.
No, that wasn't even for
Oh,
that, but that was for a fight in Redondo with um that was another story with Jade. But anyway, back to the vet story was I'm like, okay, she almost flies out. I catch her. We're good. I cut my face a little bit. I'm like, Shummer, we got to get this car out of here. So if I sat in the driver's seat, I couldn't look out the window because the hood was up 6 feet.
that's right.
And then so you leaned over and pushed the gas with your hand. I stood on the seat and drove the car. We made it to Compton and then realized I didn't have a roof to put
No,
on
no.
the car.
Well, I remember you drove out. You went on the in. You went on the infield. All right. So you drove. You hit the guardrail, and then the car went back on the infield, like the infield on the ramp, right?
I thought it was skidding off and then in the just the ramp. And then we just backed down the ramp, but
And
whatever.
then you might have backed down the. But that how would I thought? All right. So that I think all right. If you hit the guardrail and the thing came up and you back down the ramp, that's fine.
Right.
But I would the most thing I remember was when I I looked across the street because you we put it in the parking lot, which was thank you. Right, it was happened to be right there, right? And
Right.
across the street there was a payphone.
You go to
They
the
don't have those
payphone.
anymore.
Right. You go to the
So
payphone to call us a cab.
I ran across the street to the payphone to call you guys a cab, and he was there in a jiffy.
Yeah.
And then I came back to the car. I said, "We might not want to be here when the cops come because they're going to see it's still smoking right here, and the first thing they're going to do is, you know,
All right.
want to
Hey,
find out how
where you
much we had to drink at Harry O's
right.
or didn't have to,
Yeah, exactly. Who knows?
But
But yeah, you told me you got Mack look like an MTV video with
oh yeah,
the 6 foot blonde in leathers. And I told my buddy that and he goes, were you the 6 foot blonde in leathers?
yeah,
Like, no, I was
I
wearing
know her.
shorts.
Yeah, I remember her arms. She was standing across with her arms like this,
Right.
leaning against the car. So she wasn't too happy at that point. But that was the saving grace was the cab showed up pretty quickly. So
Right.
that was good.
You gotta watch your camera when you move in and out. It just keeps focusing on you. Just FYI, buddy.
Wow.
Um, do you remember the other one, that girl that was out there? That was that was the one who said she ended up getting pregnant or something. Did I tell you about that?
Yeah,
And
you kind of mentioned it, but
that might have been near the end or whatever. But because we ended up not talking to her because it was what happened was she was a friend. We played tennis, blah blah blah. We were casually hanging out. Ended up saying she was pregnant. Okay, well we're still going to be pals. I'll support it. Ended up, I don't know what she did. She fell over somewhere, got sent to the hospital. Was doing some tests. I went out there to see if she's all right.
and you said, "How's the baby?"
Yeah, I asked the doc, just remember she's pregnant. He pulls me out of the room, says, just so you know, she's not pregnant.
Wow.
And I'm like,
See?
And so I walked in and kind of said some words and then never saw her again. But how many people are out there just, deceiving or whatever the case may be, because after that we were having unprotected and thinking, okay, you're not going to get pregnant.
Right.
But LA, there's a lot of interesting folk, we'll say, it's just a magnifying glass of everything.
Well, I think the vultures learn that in how to take a man over the coal class.
Right.
Okay, so they learn that, from a friend or whatever, because you're not the first guy that
I've heard that.
heard that happen to, and
Right.
I say I could probably count them on one hand, and this many fingers
Right.
that's happened to. So, and a few of them have been close. So,
Yeah. No.
just lucky they, didn't have to. That would have been a horrible thing with that. That
Well,
never happened. If
whatever.
true,
Is,
you know.
you know, and so that was the one who ended up getting in the fight. Or not in the fight. She ended up having. Um. She ended up having. She had really big, fake boobies, and I guess we're down in Redondo, and she jumped. She jumped somewhere. Someone jumped on her or whatever was grabbing, and she, down in Redondo. You remember the name of that place, Chillers?
Oh yeah.
And so there was always fights. So there's always cops and blah blah blah. And I walked out and found out, and there was the guy, and asked him, "Are you the guy?" And then he cold cocks me and suckers me. I'm like, all right, here we go, and ended up getting surrounded by cops, and they ended up bringing the pepper spray out, and it was my buddies were like, it looked like Niagara Falls, like made of the mist. It was just, and so
they were getting you.
yeah. Well, I was just in a fight, and then my asthma kicked in. I couldn't breathe in the back of the cop car. I was ready to
Mm-hmm.
kick the window out. I could have died. Chaz opened the
Yeah.
door. I just kind of fell out. Then they
Right.
wanted to arrest Chaz for trying to release me, and we're like, no, look at him. He can't breathe. That's when I went and represented myself to save myself from Caltrans.
Chillers.
Chillers, the old Chillers.
Chillers. I was in a couple of Donnybrooks in that place with a couple of different guys. So
Right.
that place you're always. But I didn't have. I had pretty good. I had a pretty good record in there. I didn't. I was. I think I was 2-0.
Okay.
In a bar fights
In the bar fights.
with big Hispanic kids that would come in from um, Pico Rivera
Right.
and get a few beers in them and be loaded up with tattoos, and their muscles are in their beers, but they realize, they meet them. They meet it.
All right. Well, you've
You
got
know.
some pretty
Oh,
sized muscles. You're still in shape, right, big boy?
well, oh, absolutely.
Good for
Yeah,
you.
absolutely,
That's your
absolutely.
ticket. I'm on my way. I think I've been a golden tee player for too long, and that doesn't count as cardio. So, starting to walk, do a couple push-ups, but you still got it there. You look sexy at 75. even though
Thanks.
even though
Thanks.
Shummer had to go check out would you go to the Baba? You go to the Baba to shave
I went
those
to the barber
the weed
today.
whacker.
I got to pull out the weed whacker and take care of things.
Right.
but
Oh, that's great. Like
but no, yeah, but LA was one of those things where it it was another it was another it was another lesson in street smarts. You grow up
yeah, good
in the
point. Good
city.
segue.
I grew up in Boston. My high school was downtown Boston, so that gave me kind of the street smarts to be able to handle myself when I went out to LA. I didn't go out with a twin brother or a best buddy. I went out there on my own.
Right.
So you got to be able to handle yourself, and I knew that. But
Well, street smarts in life important. That's when I try and talk to my kids. Like all my kids, thank goodness they're very successful in school and a lot better than I was. They applied themselves a little bit more. And but when you hear about being a good kid and being a, you know, outside of the school, the street smart ability, it's so important in life. And
absolutely,
how we pass that on to, you know, have them learn and grow, because all we want to do is, if we can take any of the bad out of what we kind of learned or had to go through, then you pass that on, and they didn't have to do it, and they can experience it a different way. I'm a big proponent of being able to, the Shumski name or the Mackenzie name, and that just continues to get better. And in order to do that, they got to be better than us. Our kids will be better than them. That so on and so forth.
right, and that's true with a lot of second generation athletes.
Right.
You'll see your guys who paved their way, whether it's hockey back when we were younger, or football players, Deion Sanders of the world, or the Howie Longs of the world, that they were the first generation. They went through the struggles, they learned what it takes, and then they teach their boys what's important.
Mm-hmm.
This is important. They have a different learning curve than our dad gave us, because my dad was a mailman. He didn't know what was important about how to be a professional hockey player. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but or in Howie's case, a professional football player. So they can pass that. What's important? What techniques do you want to? What's important for a hockey player? How to hold your stick? If you're a defenseman, where to have your eyes, eye discipline. So those things, now you can look at up online and find the answers on YouTube, right? But
Right.
back in the day, so now our generation, us guys, I found out that a lot of the guys that have successful kids, we talk back and forth, or it's a hockey game, whatever, on how important it is to pass on the important things.
Right.
Whether I got a buddy whose daughter has played basketball at Syracuse, excellent. He had two daughters. He passed on those traits to his daughters.
Right.
You know what I mean? Those same traits are girls, boys. Am I,
Oh,
I,
my daughter, the one back there, was a heptathlete. My other daughter volleyball, the other one volleyball. But whether it's sports or life, they've got I think, the wherewithal to sort of cope. Speaking of second born, there's my boys' team right there. Those, I don't know if I can stand up on that.
there you
Junior
go.
Canes, the
Canes.
Junior Canes. Hopefully they split a weekend. I'm going to see them right after the Christmas break here, but they need to get on their horse, because they've got in their division anyway. They got three of the best teams. So how that works, they go in their division and playoffs 1, 4, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is win one series, and then you're moving on to nationals. Well, one of those three are not going to nationals, and there's other divisions that might be a little bit weaker and don't have two teams this end.
Right,
So,
right.
but them the breaks, you might as well go out swinging.
Absolutely.
Right, buddy. You didn't you bang a little gladiators back in the day as well?
Yeah, yeah. Oh my
Were
God,
you
that was
you
fun.
you you fought the gladiators, or you were a gladiator?
I was a contender. I was against the
So against the
Gladiators.
gladiators, right?
Yeah, so I was working for Anheuser-Busch. So after my
Right when you got out
after
there, that happens.
no,
Out
I
there
was
for a
working
bit.
for no, I wasn't in California at all. I was living in Boston.
Oh,
I worked for Budweiser in Medford, Massachusetts, my hometown. I started off in the marketing department, and I worked my up. So I was probably Bud Light brand manager in the Boston area. When I got the Gladiators, there was a little ad at the Gold's Gym that I trained at, and I used to see it every day going in the gym in
I
the
wanted to
galley.
do it.
So did everybody else.
I
So,
That's
so there
great.
was a little ad at the. So I went down after work. I was kind of the last guy. They started at 10 in the morning, went till 5. I show up at 5 o'clock, one of the last guys, and they asked me to go do several events. Blah blah, do this and do that. But I remember we were talking prior about you were fast,
Yeah.
and I remember the guys that were working down the Boston Common where they had the event. I think 900 guys showed up that day, girls, and they got, how you get to the end of the day, you work to those events, you kind of get giggly with the other guys that are working.
Right.
So they had the walkie talkies, and as guys would step up to run the 40, they would they would say a time that they based on how the guy looked. So so
So they
I'm
guess 7
stretching.
seconds for you.
They looked at me, and the guy goes 5'2". So I look at him, and I said, I think you're going to have to go a little bit lower than that, pal. I'm going to probably run a 4.40 right here. So I ran the 40 and 4.4. They didn't believe me, so I had to run it again, and I ran a 4.5.
Right.
So that was one of the. I remember. Then they put me on an interview. Then they interviewed me with a microphone, and bring you in and ask you a little bit about your hockey career.
So
I
then
mean, it
from
wasn't.
there, brought you in. So how many did you have to do before you went down and got on the show?
That was it. So
Right there.
that was the audition. Then they went back to California to go over all the people that they saw in Boston, and
Nice.
then probably they said you'd hear from us. You know how Hollywood is, but I didn't know it at the time. You'll hear from us, and if you get it, and then So that was probably Thursday of that week. And then I was at the gym at Gold Gym that Saturday. And Franny Shea, the guy that owns the gym, comes walking over, and he comes walking over to me and he says, "Your dad's on the phone." And my dad never calls the gym.
Right.
He would never call the gym. So it was one of those things that's either really bad or really good. So I walk over and he picks up, I get on the phone and he says, "Did you try out for, what did you, someone from Universal Studios just called here. What the hell are you doing?" So I got, long story short, I touched base and then they had it. That was that July. And that was before I moved to California. So
Did you
I went
win?
up to, I finished third.
Okay.
Third, not bad. So I came back to LA. I came back to Boston. I was still working for Budweiser, and then as soon as I came back, this is great. I came back. It was the end of July. 2 weeks in LA. I came back, and then there was a strike. Okay, Budweiser had a driver's strike in the Los Angeles distributorship, and the Los Angeles distributorship was owned by the company, which same as the branch I worked at. So they took management from around the country and shipped them to California to deliver beer. So I had to take my shirt and tie off and go to deliver beer. Now they paid me extra, stuck me in a hotel, and
Right.
I worked a beer truck. I
Nice.
loved it. I didn't mind it at all.
Right.
I had to
My
take the
old man,
jacket tie off.
my old man got to work the Coke truck back in the day.
So it
Coca-Cola.
delivered. So I I did that for a month. So I came back in July, late July, and so for the whole month of August, I was out in Los Angeles delivering beer. It was great. So I came back, and I'm in Boston. Then the winter set in, and then I'm looking around, going, "Jesus, I like Los Angeles." So that was
The start of
at
it.
that point. That was the start of it.
Speaking of speed, yeah. I played ball, and I think it was a 4.38, something like whatever it was. And I remember to this day because I was just at his house the other day, and my buddy Justin, who's younger than me, gosh, got to be 10 years at least ish, somewhere around there. And so this is when I first moved into my house, so 15 years ago. So I'm late 30s, just retired kind of thing. And they were saying, "No way you could run that, this, that, and the other thing." And I'm like, "You want me to walk out there and run a 4.5 right now?"
Right.
And they're like, "What?" And so 100, I'm like, "I'm not doing this for free. Throw your hundies out there. Let's go." And I think the line, I don't know, I got it. It was 4.5 something change, but
Yep.
now I don't know. I think my hamstring might rip in half, but every time I play pickleball with my son, it falls over.
So you were quick.
Quickie.
So
I was a
so
late
40,
grower. It's like my son,
40.
who's now he's on his way up.
Well, I'm saying, what did you run the 100 in? Because I ran the
Uh,
40. I ran 100
I
in a better time than I ran the 40
no,
because I started because I was long.
right.
So you know what I mean. So I started picking
I
up
was
speed
better
at
the other.
50
I was
yards,
better the other way. So
shorter
I
or longer.
went in, shorter. When I was younger, I did run track. My daughter runs the hurdles. I never ran the hurdles. I wish I would have, but I ran a 400 and it was just shy of a minute, and then 100 that was, I don't think it was
400 is
12
a
and
tough
change.
race.
Yeah, it's that tweener, that tweener.
400 is a.
But
Go ahead, pal.
yeah, no.
No.
So both my kids got all my kids. Moose even ran when he was younger, long distance. So when I was in grade 9, I did the cross country, and then I'm like, yeah, my body ain't for cross country.
No.
I think that's why I failed history. My cross country teacher was the cross country coach or history coach.
He didn't like how you were doing.
How do you go from a 42 to an 84 in summer school? He just wanted to make me go to summer school. What, did I just learn history all of a sudden? No, the guy didn't like me.
That's exactly
That's
right.
kind of why I left St. Mike's, because it seemed like they might have had something out for me, because my grade 12 year, I played everything: hockey, baseball, football, dabbled around with some other ones. And then I was playing junior for my grade 13 year and wasn't going to play anything. And I'm like, you know what? I might not need to be here. So I transferred to where my sister was a grade 9 at another school. But Yeah, no, we're gonna have to get you on here, pal, for whether it's some stories or whether it's some hockey advice for the young lads. Um,
Absolutely.
I don't mind. My whole motto in life is smile, be happy, enjoy. Enjoy everything and share what you got. I'm happy. That's one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing this for, to be able to, whether it's
Absolutely.
help a single dad out or help a coach out or whatever. There's a lot of bullshit out there, and as you
Oh,
know, people can pick it up on YouTube, and well, what's good from YouTube, right? It's not
right.
always the truth. So
Well, there's one thing I notice that that's true when I moved back, and moving a family back is one of the toughest things you can do.
right,
Moving your family, and but my whole thing in life is there's not a wall that's big enough for me not to climb over, and that should be true for anybody.
one
Like,
hundred
in other
percent,
words, if you put your mind to it, if you really put your mind to it, you can do it.
love it.
And you just have to, if whatever obstacle comes up in your day, whatever that is, you just have to, like, even take the altar, not to get morbid, but take your dad dies. Okay, so that takes time. My dad, it took time. Eventually that heals, right? So you you just, those particular things, you need time. Get it? Right? So the obstacle in that pain is time. We've all got, we're younger, you break up with your girlfriend and it's horrible when you're a teen. You just need time to get over that. So that wall that you got to get over is time, right?
I'm a big proponent of friends and support too. Family, friends, and support. Where some people can lean on somebody, some people don't know how to. I
Yep.
think, as you know, there's a lot of buddies of ours that have played and have gone from the spotlight to nothing to and can't handle that. Nobody cheering for them anymore, or whatever the case may be. I've
Yep.
had numerous concussions, so I've had some buddies that I've lost to that, whether that's CTE or post concussion syndrome or whatever the case may be. But I truly think 99.9% of the things out there, mind over matter, can accomplish a lot. Whether I was telling someone the other day, I had too many edibles. Well, you can talk your way out of it.
Right.
what
Right.
I wanted to bring humor to something that's very serious, but that's
Excuse
what
me.
I mean, from top to bottom. So whether it's a breakup, whether it's loss, whether it's divorce, whether it's kids, the whole thing. There's an up and down, and being able to. I heard it the other day, Jimmy V's speech. If you can do three things in life every day, and that's smile or laugh, cry sad tears or happy, and use your thought. So use your mind to some degree, and you
Mhm.
engage all those three things every day, you've had a great day.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. That's the half full versus half empty personality.
right,
And I align myself with people that think like me, that my glass is half full, not half empty. Right.
exactly. and
So
and
I think that's why we got along so good.
you're
You know,
100%,
it
buddy.
wasn't just filled with beer. It was back in the day.
Right,
But
exactly.
so if like anything, if you fall off the horse, you get back up, right?
Exactly, buddy.
You
Well,
know,
hey, my friend, let's do this again, and I think we're gonna have a bit of fun and enjoy it, man. It's great talking to you again, and can't wait to see you.
same here. And if I don't see you before Christmas, the holidays, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, my
Yeah, Merry Christmas to everybody out there, and God bless you guys. Take care. Peace.
friend. Okay, thank you. Take care.